This is a vlog series. In these vlogs, I will pick a topic and talk about it. And because it's unscripted and because I'm just kind of disorganized and cluttered, they more often than not kind of tend to get rambling and incoherent. That's at the best of times. Today's topic is especially going to be rambling and incoherent because I've got kind of so many diverse thoughts on this and I haven't scripted this out, and it's just going to be a mess. Advance warning ahead of time. Also, the camera I'm using will automatically click off after 30 minutes. I don't know why, just some setting on it. And I fully anticipate that I'm going to be kind of in mid-ramble and the camera's just going to click off mid-sentence. So advance warning ahead of time, just kind of expect that. I'll try and hopefully by that time I'll have said the majority of what I want to say. With that in mind, actually, let me kind of get the main points of this out right at the beginning. I am worried about global warming. I don't know what to do about it, but I'm going to try and figure out something. So this video is going to be like an announcement, and then I'm going to check back in with every 2 weeks is the plan, to kind of update on what I've been able to figure out or what I've been able to kind of find out about what there is to do about global warming and kind of keep everybody updated here. That's the plan. Okay, now we kind of get into the rambling and incoherent stuff, maybe. So, I know at this stage in the game, it's a little bit kind of late to get into global warming. I mean, better late than never, right? But this has been a very increasing issue for a long time now. I'm not entirely a Johnny-come-lately to the cause. I am kind of, but I was politically active when I was younger, when I was a university student, a college student, again, about the time I was 28 or so, I was back in the US for a period and was trying to connect with various groups and stuff like that. I have been spending the majority of my adult life, or pretty much all of my adult life really, aside from short stretches here and there, teaching English in Asia, which kind of makes it hard to get politically involved, except for like the YouTube or the Twitter activism where you're just kind of being politically involved by writing blog posts and sharing tweets and stuff like that. And there's a place for that. But definitely our generation has kind of substituted that too much for real activism, and I'm as guilty of that as anyone else. Although, again, in my case, I've been living abroad, so my options for political engagement are limited. But, like I did back in college, I was involved with environmental groups. It was one of many causes that kind of occupied my attention. I was kind of trying to be involved in all the liberal groups at my university, and it wasn't at the time the primary thing that attracted my attention. I was really interested in kind of anti-racism issues, anti-militarism or anti-war issues. Those were kind of the things that captured the imagination, I guess, my passion, the kind of things where there seemed to be a very clear right and wrong, and there seemed to be kind of the right side of history and the wrong side of history, and I wanted to kind of throw my weight behind the right side of history. So the environmental thing was more of kind of a side thing, but I did attend the meetings for the environmental group on college. I wrote an article in the school newspaper in support of the Kyoto Treaty, which back in the late 90s, that was a treaty that Al Gore had negotiated in Kyoto, but to kind of protect the environment, but then our Senate refused to ratify it, and it ended up getting killed by the Bush administration eventually. But yeah, certainly in adult life and living abroad, I've not been very active in these things other than the usual internet activism, tweeting and stuff like that. Yeah, so global warming is something that's been around for forever. You know, again, it was something I was writing about during the 90s. But boy, it's really gotten serious lately, hasn't it? So I remember, I think the first time it kind of hit me kind of how serious this was. It was about 6 years ago. I was living in Cambodia at the time, but I was listening to the BBC World Service, and this was like on the radio, like the old-fashioned thing your grandparents used to listen to. I had a radio plugged in the apartment, and they were giving a report by some sort of scientist or other who was talking about the heating up of the ocean and how this was affecting some of the, I don't remember, the plankton or the amoebas, and these things produce like a certain amount of oxygen for the air. And he said, you know, if these things die off, it's, life is not going to be sustainable. Like, that's it, the human race is not going to survive. And boy, did that ruin my day. And I remember I didn't have internet at my apartment at the time, but when I got into work, I was kind of trying to look this up, because I had heard it on the radio, right? Like, I didn't have like a link to link it to, and I couldn't find any articles exactly saying the same thing, even from the BBC's homepage. But yeah, I'm assuming this, you know, this was on the BBC radio. And since then, I've heard occasionally predictions of similar gloom and doom, that the human race is not going to make it another 50 years, that conditions on the planet are not going to become livable. So this was a turning point for me, because up until then, I think my image of global warming was it's going to be hot and uncomfortable, or like, you know, maybe we might lose Florida or New York, or, you know, like but the idea that this could be it, right? It also, so this is where I'm going to get a little bit rambling and coherent and maybe philosophical, caused me to wonder to a certain extent, how much do I care? I mean, because at my age, my natural lifespan is going to be another 50 years anyways, if I'm lucky. Why do I care if the human race doesn't survive? I mean, like, I knew I did care. It depressed me incredibly to think that the human race was coming to an end. But why did I care? You know, kind of teasing this out. And I think we as human beings, you know, when you're young, you kind of think you're going to live forever, right? Like a teenager doesn't think about their own mortality. As you get older, you start to think about your own mortality, but you find meaning in the sense that civilization is going to go on. And so, like, whatever you contribute to that, you know, like, it's always in the back of my mind, and maybe this is a little bit egotistical of me, but whenever I post something on the blog or post something on YouTube, that there is a potential for this thing to survive into the next generation, kind of assuming Google keeps their same business model and maintains this massive archive of footage that they have. Not that I would be famous in the next generation, but that it would be part of a collection of things that humans have kind of put together. Yeah, I mean, you do want to feel like your actions have kind of significance, like even in some small way. I mean, the generation before us didn't have the internet, but they got involved in causes. I mean, the civil rights cause in the 1960s was because people were feeling like they were improving the human race and that this was going to have lasting effects for the next generation. The current struggles of our generation, right? To give an example, and I'm going to deliberately pick on something that's arguably can kind of exemplify maybe the small things. But the debate about gender pronouns, right, with trans people and how they want to be addressed. This is something that people are putting a lot of time and energy into because they're getting some sort of satisfaction of improving the quality of civilization, and that this is potentially going to be kind of appreciated by generations in the future. Now, imagine we spend all this time and energy kind of getting the right pronouns for transgender people, and then the human race doesn't survive another 50 years, right? I mean, what kind of wasted energy is that? And that's what we're kind of largely looking at. I'm going to move into the shower maybe. Or oh no, maybe I'm not. Sorry, there's a baby in the apartment. I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but yeah, maybe I'll just talk about this right now. I am at a point in my life when I am incredibly busy with stuff. Working 2 jobs at the moment, up to kind of 60 hours a week on a busy week. Just had a baby, so kind of dealing with all the baby stuff. Doing the Delta Module 3, which may not mean anything to you. If you're an English teacher, you recognize this as kind of a qualification. And also, I've been posting a lot on YouTube because I've lately become excited about the potentials of this platform and been trying to, what little free time I have, dedicate a lot of it into working on these various projects I have on YouTube, going through the old book reviews and stuff like that. All right, I'm going to move into the shower. You may have seen a previous video of mine in which I announced that I'd be doing all my filming from the shower, or a majority of it, because I live in a small apartment where, you know, if the baby's sleeping, I can maybe kind of get away with filming a video in the kitchen. Otherwise, I have to go into the shower. The acoustics are a bit echoey in here, but what can you do? I do help a lot with the baby under normal circumstances. I know in this case it looks like I'm just kind of escaping here. So anyways, because I'm so busy with all of this, I was thinking, and I've been thinking for years now, I'll get more involved in the kind of global warming thing once I get stable, once I kind of finish off these qualifications, once I finish some of these other projects I'm working with on YouTube, once I get more financially stable, or kind of get through the first few months of this baby and stuff like that. But like, the news is just getting so worrisome lately that you definitely you can't put this off another 5 years. Like, if we as humans are going to get involved in this, we collectively, not just me, but we all have to say, right, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to do it now. This isn't going to wait around another 5 years. So like, yeah, if you're like me, if you're thinking, well, I'm going to get involved in this kind of stuff eventually, but I'm a little bit busy now. I think just looking at the news and kind of realizing how serious things have been getting, that now is now. Like, there's no putting this off anymore. So it's, yeah, okay, I'm somewhat jumping around a little bit, but going back to kind of 6 years ago when this kind of first reports, when I first became aware of this first reports about how serious things were getting. And there are different degrees of this. Some people say like the Earth's going to be unlivable. And some people say, well, that human civilization as we know it is going to collapse. You know, like the next generation will be like post-apocalyptic, kind of scavenging in the wilderness type things. You know, the second alternative obviously has a little bit more hope than the first one, but either way, that's not the kind of future we want. And got me philosophical thinking about why we care about the future as humans, even though we're not going to live to see it. But it also has amazed me from that day to now how kind of comparatively little attention this has gotten. And I know increasingly it's in the news more and more, but yeah, I mean, I remember kind of the past 6 years, kind of ever since I became aware of the fact of how serious this is, noticing kind of how obsessed the internet culture is with Star Wars and with the Marvel movies. And I don't want to, I've been as much a part of that as anyone else. You know, I've reviewed the Marvel movies on my blog and on this YouTube channel. I've gotten into the Star Wars thing. I've spent more time than I care to admit just reading online about rumors for the upcoming Star Wars movies and stuff like that. And I've thought to myself occasionally in some of my more lucid moments, what am I doing? Why do I care about this when there's a real possibility that the human race isn't going to survive another 50 years, right? Like, yeah, and so I mean, I think I've talked about this with various people. There are any number of explanations. Kind of one explanation I've heard is that we are evolved to kind of deal with immediate threats, right? Like our ancestors on the African savanna are evolved to deal with the threat of kind of a lion approaching. But we're not programmed to kind of realize threats that we can't see that may come way in the distant future, and that's why we human beings are so bad at this. I mean, another option, another possible explanation, of course, is that it's just so depressing to think about this. This is probably certainly the case in my situation, where part of the reason I've spent so much time reading about Star Wars on the internet the past 5 years is because I don't want to think. I mean, you know, it's really hard to kind of go through your day-to-day life and be kind of thinking, yeah, civilization is doomed. There are days when, like, I'll be checking CNN's website or the BBC and I'll see an article saying latest news report say climate is looking catastrophic, and I deliberately won't click on it because I don't want to think about that for the rest of the day. It's just going to depress me, and I've got stuff to do today, right? Now, I think that's understandable from a psychological perspective, but the cumulative effect of this, of course, if we're all doing this, is, yeah, it's a collective abandonment of responsibility. It's also puzzling to me, and again, I've been abroad for a number of years and I'm kind of out of touch with stuff, but why aren't college students, why isn't college activism more up in arms with this? I mean, you think about the protests during the civil rights movement, and you think about the protests during the Vietnam War or something like that, and it's not because college students are apathetic, right? Because we hear every day the right-wing media complaining about political correctness run amok on campuses and stuff like that. The things that college students are very concerned about stuff. But yeah, again, this should be the issue that just overrides everything else. Like just about every single other issue can be kicked down the road. The thing about gender pronouns, we can fight that battle in another 50 years. The issue of our generation is to make sure the human race survives. And I know that sucks, like again, I've got other things I would prefer to be doing instead of this, but this is the issue. So we've got to just focus on this. Now, the other reason why people haven't been focusing on this is, now this is kind of really the heart of the issue here, is people don't know what to do. And I'm including myself in this 100%. I don't know what to do about it. I remember that Al Gore movie, An Inconvenient Truth, right? It's a movie I avoided seeing for years because I knew it was just going to depress me, and it did. Although it was also interesting in itself, like worth checking out just because some parts are interesting and you learn stuff. But you get to the end of the video, and I know this is an old movie at this point. You get to the end of the movie, and there's the end credits roll, and there's like a list of things you can do kind of coming up while the music thing starts. And I was like, oh great, okay, here's what we can do about this. Have you seen that movie? The list was things like pray. If you're a child, talk to your parents about why they're destroying the earth. Like, this was actual stuff in the movie. If you're a parent, talk to your child about what you can do. Run for Congress. It was just, it was just stupid stuff like that that had no practical value, and that okay, you can pray if you want to, but this is not practical advice for like, but that's the thing, right? Like, what I think there are so many of us who are thinking, what can we do about this? And what can we do about this? So that's going to be my mission, kind of starting this project, is to try and research what we can do about this. And here's what I'm kind of thinking vaguely, is kind of find out what organizations we can donate money to. You hear over and over again how we have all the technology we need to kind of solve this crisis. If we could just get it implemented, or if we could just get the right renewable energy implemented. Now, that being said, some of this seems to be in debate because it depends which article you read. Some people say, look, we're just going to have to kind of cut down on stuff. We can't continue consuming energy at the level we're doing. I don't know, but yeah, to the extent that we can just kind of replace fossil fuels with energy that's not going to contribute to that, where do I donate money to? Figure that out. Also, the old-fashioned thing of writing your congressman, and part of this, I think, is going to start being politically informed about what bills are up for being voted on where. And I don't even know at the moment, but this is going to probably be part of this project, is kind of figuring out what bills are going to be up there that affect the environment, and kind of doing those old-fashioned writing campaigns to your congressman. Even though I live abroad, I'm still a registered voter, so I think I can participate in this. And that hopefully could be something that I could use this YouTube channel for, is to kind of spread this information about what stuff could be up for it. What bills we could write about to our congressman, or what campaigns we can get behind. Further than that, there's of course the individual aspect of like, what can we do individually to cut down on our carbon emissions. Now, I know there's always this debate in the environmental movement about the emphasis from shifting like the onus on the individual, like you have to kind of cut down on your carbon emissions, to kind of talking about like the government and the structures and stuff like this. And the concern is that if we put too much emphasis on kind of the individual responsibility, then the real issue, which is kind of getting the government to kind of enact legislation that's going to curb the big stuff, is going to get overlooked, and that's a concern. On the other hand, right, talking about what we can individually do is going to be, well, it's going to be, it could be important if we could get collective action on this. For example, me not driving my car is going to have a minuscule effect. But if collectively we could all stop driving cars and walk more, that would have a huge effect. So it's an area worth pursuing. Now, I better get this out of the way sooner rather than later. I would be a huge hypocrite if I were to kind of allege that I'm some sort of saint when it comes to environmentalism. I've never been. There are certain things I do, like I walk all the time instead of driving. In the past, I've made a big effort to cut down on air conditioning use. I haven't done that so much lately because the air in the city I'm living has become unbreathable. Like, you know, according to those recommended air quality index. So I've kind of given in to the necessity of closing up all the windows and running the air conditioner, especially with a baby in the house. This might be something I talk about in a later video, as the air conditioning dilemma. You know, these are both things I was kind of predisposed to do anyways. The walking thing especially, like I much prefer walking. It's how I get my exercise. I like walking. It relaxes me. So, like, how much credit can I take for it? So the challenge for me personally is going to get myself to do the kind of things that I'm not predisposed to do anyways. Kind of the, you know, the more difficult stuff. On the other hand, I think moving forward to kind of getting people to be more environmentally conscious and taking these mass collective actions, the first step is going to be to get people to do what they were predisposed to do anyways. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit here, and that's kind of an easy change to make that kind of needs to be made sooner rather than later. So the idea of walking to work rather than driving your car. If you know, this is something that we can convince people that they want to do it anyways because it's healthy to walk and it's good to walk and you know, all these kind of things, relaxing, better for your kind of psychological state, then let's go after this. And we don't need to make like necessarily a big cult of self-sacrifice about everything. Although a certain amount of self-sacrifice is going to have to come into this game probably sooner or later. But yeah, you know, maybe that's one of the things I might do later, is kind of making a video about walking. And why we need to do more of it, and why I'm a big fan of it, and why it will kind of help one step to kind of get us out of this crisis. Where was I going with all this? Yeah, I guess the point being, the original thing I started out on this tangent is I am not a saint. And there are two dangers about this. The one thing is the fact that all of us we're all kind of contributing to the greenhouse gases in one way or another, right? We all have a carbon footprint. And so you don't, on the one hand, you don't want to get to the situation where you're not allowed to speak up about it unless you're perfect, because that's just going to kind of clamp down on any kind of meaningful discussion. You know, I guess you want to have kind of that old church view, right? We're all kind of sinners in need of redemption. We're all kind of carbon producers seeking to kind of find ways to lower our carbon emissions. On the other hand, you don't want to